World-renowned concert pianist and teacher, Spencer Myer is lauded for superb playing and poised, alert musicianship by the Boston Globe, and labeled definitely a man to watch by London's The Independent. Spencer Myer is one of the most respected and sought-after artists on today's concert stage. Today, we have the pleasure of getting one step closer to playing like him. In this archived webinar hosted by PianoInspires, Barbara Fast is joined by Spencer Myer, who shares 4 powerful practice techniques that will transform the way you play. These strategies are designed to fully engage your brain and help you build rock-solid technique and confidence at the piano. The first tip is about slow practice. However, this isn't just about playing at half speed. Spencer Myer explains how to turn slow practice into a powerful brain exercise that rewires your muscle memory and builds accuracy.
Well, let me ask you, is muscle memory good or bad? Is it something we know it happens? Is it good or bad? And then I'm going to ask you, just to go a little bit further with that, what is your first practice tip for changing that physical sensation or changing muscle memory at the piano? But is it good or bad?
It's definitely a good thing. It's definitely a good thing. I do focus so much of my practice on how it's bad and how I can get away from it. But of course it's a good thing. I mean, it's a physical act. Playing an instrument is a physical act, and there is physicality involved. So what better way to get things into our brain than to repeat? So the repetition gets it into our muscle memory, and that can be again used as a tool. I find myself sometimes on stage, if I do feel I'm having a memory slip, I find ways to sort of zone myself out, get into a place where I'm getting out of stressing about that upcoming memory slip. I think about the laundry, or I hum the melody in my head to get myself out of that place. And in that moment, I'm tapping into the muscle memory. So it can be used as a tool. But I always say that memorization for us and practicing is about 80% muscle memory and 20% the rest, which is for me involving the brain and making the brain active. And for me, that 20% is really the good and the reliable and the area which we can make really strong. So I would say the first thing that comes to mind is something that our teachers tell us to do from day one, which is slow practice. And the thing about slow practice is that for so many students and we professionals, it can become very routine and very boring, and something where we sort of have a set tempo in our head where we slow our piece down to this tempo and we practice it and we go through the motions, and then it's done, and then it gets better. But why does it get better? What I like to do is turn these unconventional, but also some conventional practice techniques like slow practice, turn them around in our head to think of them more as a brain exercise. So what really happens with slow practice is that we are, again, changing our musculature, changing how the physicality feels, so that our brain is forced to think about each next note. So slow practices, for instance, maybe in the B minor scherzo, instead. Already I find myself stressing just a little bit to think about, do I really know that next note that's coming up, because the physicality is so different. So slow practice is the first thing that comes to mind.
Well, I've also heard you speak about inconsistent tempo. That's rather unusual. Can you unpack that a little bit for us?
Yes, absolutely. Inconsistent tempos for me is something that I do much more often than slow practice, and it's a form of slow practice. But for me, inconsistent tempos is a way of, I think, engaging the brain more. It's a more sort of improvisatory and fun and inherently musical way to practice, not at the 100% tempo. So I think it allows for more enjoyment in practice. It allows for more exploration of musical ideas, and I think the spontaneity of it. I try to never practice in certain of these techniques that we'll be talking about. I try to never practice the same way twice, never the same tempo twice, to again keep it spontaneous and keep always our musculature changing. So the inconsistent tempos is something that I just kind of make up on the spot. So again, with the B minor scherzo, I have moments where I really, really slow down and take my time, and then push ahead randomly. Forgot the note. Or in, for instance, the G minor ballade. This treacherous section. And again, it's completely random. So I'm always staying on my toes. I'm trying to not let my muscle memory take over. I always challenging my muscle memory, always throwing a challenge. Also, I'm currently working on Beethoven Opus 26, the beautiful A flat sonata with the variations. And the second variation is very physically repetitive with these alternating left and right hands. So it lends itself so perfectly for these inconsistent tempos and changing our musculature so we don't get caught up in the up down of the. Instead, so I find myself challenging my brain. I find myself exploring melodies and voices maybe that I didn't hear before. So again, it's a very much more engaging and much less routine, can be much less routine form of a slower practice than just plain slow practice.
If you enjoyed these tips, there's so much more waiting for you at PianoInspires.com. For less than $3 a month, you can unlock access to hundreds of teaching videos covering technique, deep dives into diverse repertoire, archived webinars, and so much more. And that's not all. Your subscription also includes every issue of Piano Magazine, our renowned quarterly publication with over 20 years of inspiring content. It's packed with insights and resources for piano teachers, learners, and performers alike. Visit PianoInspires.com today and use the code YouTube15 to get 15% off your subscription today. Thanks for watching, and let's get back to the video.
So you've talked about inconsistent tempo, and you've already sort of demonstrated. What about changing rhythms real explicitly?
Yes, changing rhythms. Yeah. I mean, the scherzo number one, again, is I'm going to open up the first page now, is a really good example, I think, because the first, this is another technique that often our teachers tell us to do from day one, and again, can become very routine. So I sometimes implement the inconsistent tempos on top of these alternating rhythms. But the first alternating rhythm that comes to mind is just the traditional dotted rhythm. So long note, short note. And then you can reverse it. So short note, long note. And what's happening if we look at this under a microscope is that we are forcing on every other note, we're forcing our musculature to stop and thus our brain to engage and think about the next note. And again, that's such a strange and foreign feeling physicality. So changing that physicality is what is engaging our brain. And then I wrote down a few other examples. The third movement of the Moonlight. So we have these ascending arpeggios. So this lends itself to the dotted rhythms. And again, I really feel in that slight moment where I have a long note, where I'm used to not having to wait, I have a long note, I find myself really thinking, oh, is that G sharp is going to a C sharp? Yes, and then we're going to an E. So I feel myself thinking much more actively than when I'm just playing at 100% tempo. But this also lends itself to different combinations of notes. We can do 3 at a time. I'm going back to dotted rhythms. It's challenging. Maybe 4 is a little better. So there are combinations of 4. So you start instead on the second note. And then maybe on the third note. Forcing me to be extra cognizant of where the left hand lines up with which note in the right hand. So that's an extra thought that may have gone into my muscle memory previously. The fourth ballade, the coda of the fourth ballade. This is a great example because this is implements the use of triplets. So we can do different combinations of the triplets involved. So we have the fourth ballade. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and we can do hesitation or waiting on the first note. Or the second note. Sorry. And the third note. So again, there's that moment is so crucial where our musculature stops, where it's not used to stopping that musculature and forcing our brain in that moment to in our own uncomfortable feeling to really think. So then we have that peace of mind when we walk on stage that we do know how to think about that next note. Our brain is engaged.
And you've also already sort of demonstrated skipping around practice, and I know you talk about that. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yes, exactly. I mean, this is so classic. It's the classic example we see in young students, especially, where if they make a mistake, they have to go back to the beginning of the piece because starting at the beginning has become such a part of their muscle memory. And I think we've all run into it as professionals as well. Being able to start at any point in the piece is a special skill, and it's a necessary skill. I know a lot of teachers that use starting points, that choose starting points in pieces with their students, where they will actually choose specific starting points. So I think that's also a very useful tool. But skipping around, for me, the first example that comes immediately to mind are in sonatas, because this is the classic example of places where similar material appears in 2 different keys, and it's so easy to forget which one you're going to. Often there are a few sonatas that come to mind where there's one note that can derail you and take you back to the beginning. So what I like to do is choose a brief section, 2 lines maybe, in an exposition, and juxtapose that, go back and forth very quickly from that same moment in the exposition to that same moment in the recap. So for example, in Beethoven Opus 110, we have... And that's E flat major in the exposition. I go immediately to the A flat in the recap. Obviously, the parallel material in sonatas involves maybe between 4 and 10 to 15 small sections like that. So you can take a line or 2 and go back and forth and back and forth. So I tell my students, this is one technique I tell my students to do all the time. Make sure that if you have parallel material in pieces in 2 different keys, make sure you can go back and forth. So that's one sort of very a clear form of skipping around. This applies again to the Moonlight third movement, where we have and then it comes in D major. This is almost a better example, because in this moonlight, he shifts a few notes, so it's not quite parallel. So you have, and in the other key, it's, there's that little turnaround. So juxtaposing those two is a great reminder to the brain, not just to the musculature, to the brain. And this can be done slow, it can be done fast, it can be done in inconsistent tempos. But I think the important idea is, in this particular example of parallel material in sonatas, is going back and forth as quickly as possible without, so you sort of charge your musculature, you sort of give them the electric shock of having to switch immediately, and thus the brain engages.
Thanks again for watching. We hope you enjoyed the video. Comment below your favorite practice tips. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you'll never miss an update. See you in the next video.